Warframe has a variety of weapons in the game, from primaries to secondaries, to even hack and slashing melee weapons. There are plenty of weapons you can choose from, but not all are good honestly. Players want to use those weapons that can kill enemies as quickly as possible, but we will not talk about those kinds of weapons here. What we will be discussing are those weapons which are very useful at high to endgame levels, and those weapons that have a shocking factor, that you'll be surprised yourself that the weapon has actual usage. Do take note that we will be using the testing room to give you a clear view of how the weapon works, and I got plenty of weapons to discuss, so let's begin this video. The first weapon is the Argonak. Some players don't like this weapon despite its gimmick of enabling users to spot enemies through walls. The of this weapon against high-level enemies is somewhat mediocre, but it has its saving grace in the form of an amalgam Argonak metal auger. We are not talking about the punch-through gimmick here, but the ability to give daggers the shattering impact mod bonus. This with Rakta Dark Dagger will pair well and makes the fight even against high-level Shadow Stalker trivial. It's also the best combination which offers solid survivability and damage in endgame levels. The shield per radiation procs that Rakta Dark Dagger offers will allow you to abuse shield gating, while the armor reduction per hit given by Argonak makes your dagger as deadly as any meta weapons used against high-level content. Before we delve deeper into the video, let's thank our sponsors. Raid Shadow Legends, Badass Champions, check. Tough Bosses, check. Millions of players, check. Years of content and regular updates, check. Caught in the middle of an epic struggle that's raged for thousands of years, you'll fight noble kings and dark wizards, you'll uncover prophecies, curses, betrayals, and meet more than 16 warring factions. This game brings back everything I remember about my childhood, all with gameplay I can take anywhere. This game has everything I desire in the palm of my hands, and what's more exciting is that every champion and every progress you make in the game feels worth it. You'll be rewarded grandiosely for every challenging task you completed, whether it's a gear that will make your champion stronger, or be a top-line champion which is excellent for endgame content. In fact, Raid Shadow Legends offer a variety of champions to collect and use, and each of them is in a separate faction. My personal favorite is the Demon Spawn, as they are somewhat a mix of some of my favorite games in the past. Also, new champions are in development as we speak, and if you join the millions of players now by simply clicking the link I have provided on the video description below, then you will receive 200,000 silver, and the champion tree fella. All this treasure will be waiting for you here, so good luck, and I'll see you there. Okay, now let's get back to business. The third weapon is the Muteless Squatter. Damage-wise, I really can say that this malformed bow is nowhere near as powerful as other endgame weapons, but it is an interesting mechanic that proves quite useful in idle hunts. The thing is, Muteless Squatter's secondary fire allows you to form a small infested ball which grants an increase in electric damage and critical multiplier on shots that go through this infested mass. Think of it as Volt's shield that you and your team can use to further boost your damage. This primary is practical for idle hunts, especially if you are running non-meta frames and weapons. Lastly, Redeemer Prime shot through the infested mass will deal massive damage to those big trees. Next on the list is Hema. This is one of the hardest weapons to obtain in the past because mutagen samples weren't that easy to get before the steel path arrives. This weapon does two things. It sucks your health once you reload the weapons, and then restores it when you are landing headshots. The fact is, this is the only weapon right now that deals self-damage, and this is the only weapon that allows Chroma to get his Vex Fury buff from Vex Armor at max easily. Just a quick tip, if you want to use this with Chroma, then equip the Tactical Reload mod. This way, you don't need to reload the weapon. All you need to do is holster and swap it with either your secondary or melee weapon to activate the self-damage effect. But be careful though, as it would severely take away your health. Best that you have something to regain life fast. Moving on, we got the Ferrox. If you don't have max out Zenuric focus, or something like Magus Anomaly to group enemies in one spot, then Ferrox is your old reliable. This weapon can be thrown and it pulls enemies within 10 meters range for every 2 seconds. What's even better is that you can mod this weapon and give it elements like viral, corrosive, or anything that you can mix along with your condition overload setup. Now let's get back first to weapons with amalgam mods. One of the best weapons right now which has these mods is the Deku. This bow paired with an Ikana will give your Warframe immortality. It's one of those setup which allows you to go endless in any long endurance runs. This bow has become useful because of this mod. The 3% life steal may not suffice at first glance, but it actually gives a reliable source of constant health regeneration, especially if you mod your Nikana with a good amount of attack speed. While it will be more useful as a stat stick for Nikana weapons, but Deka can also hold its own when it comes to damage since it has some decent stat values which are further boosted by the headshot multiplier of this amalgam mod. Try a Deka and Nikana setup with a frame that has invisibility, and you will definitely love the ninja style gameplay. The next weapon is probably my favorite one to use in long endurance runs in void survival runs. This is the Mitre, a weapon that shoots saw blades but honestly doesn't do that much damage to enemies. Its actual use is against nullifiers, and this is the best counter for these enemy types. With its neutralizing justice augment, you will be popping nullifucker bubbles without breaking a sweat. Honestly, this is the best endgame weapon in void survival, or any corpus missions that has tons of nullifiers. It may not have some decent damage output, but its ability to completely make nullifiers useless is invaluable. Another very useful weapon is the Sarpa. Players may overlook this gunblade since both Redeemer Prime and Stropha can dismantle enemies within a couple of seconds, but Sarpa is a different breed of gunblade. It can actually do some decent damage given with the right mod setup, but its actual usage is more on stripping armors with the Shattering Impact mod. Redeemer Prime and Stropha can be equipped with Shattering Impact also, but Sarpa does the armor stripping better since it fires burst shot which makes the process a lot faster. Even to this day, Sarpa can still be used to strip armors not just against star chart enemies, but also against those big giants in the plains of Eidolon. Next, we have Zaki Prime. The normal version in the past was one solid endgame utility weapon for popping nullifier bubbles, and administering status effect procs to enemies after the Melee 3.0 update, but since the release of Kuvanuka, this pistol was put into the mastery rank fodder closet by some players. However, with the increase of status chance, their Zaki Prime has become a better alternative when it comes to spreading status. But mind you, this weapon does open enemies hit by the clouds to stealth damage multiplier, so while it's not as good as Kuvanuka when it comes to spreading status, it still does a good job in giving more bonus damage. Long story short, it's a good alternative utility weapon that is easy to acquire compared to the best, which is Kuvanuka. Another weapon worth mentioning on this list is the Hyrudo. This weapon got overshadowed by the likes of a Healing Return, or an Amalgam Deka Nikana setup. Because of the new meta, players did not even bother to take a second look at this weapon after the recent Melee update. Well, that's definitely a bad decision because Hyrudo became a more decent melee weapon against high-level content after the update, with how fast we can build combo counter, and how easy we can get 12 times combo multiplier. Hyrudo can now become a hybrid monster, a monster that can both deal damage and replenish your health per critical hit. Although this weapon doesn't excel mostly on damage, and you need to give it a Kuvanuka treatment if you want to use it in endurance runs, but still, this is a small price to pay on being immortal. Aside from Hyrudo, you should also consider trying Prismobex. I consider this weapon as one of those unnaturally good when it comes to killing enemies. If you take a look at its stat, you will conclude that it's not good at endgame content because of how low the slash damage of this weapon. Slash and viral dominates endgame endurance run at the moment, and you would say that Prismobex is out of the picture. Well, that's just fallacy when you have the right mod setup for Prismobex. It can wreck high-level content enemies with ease because of how mad its critical chance and status chance. It becomes a hybrid monster, but the fun doesn't stop there. Remember that this weapon has the augment called Entropy Detonation, which gives you that semi-nuking capability, and when you pair it with a Helminth Prolonged Paralysis Valkyr, this weapon will give you a crazy amount of fun nuking enemies that are downed by your paralysis ability. Within a few seconds, you will see dead bodies lying on the ground because of this amazing combo. Next on the list is the infamous Ajati. It may be known to many as an Ikana which lets you go invisible for a couple of seconds after a finisher attack, but what I would like to discuss here is the most useful application of this weapon. I know you have seen me use this on Exlabur marked for death in the past, or even the legal Savage Silence Banshee for endgame endurance, but what I would like to tell you is Ajati isn't only useful at survival runs, it's one of the best weapon you can use for leveling your Warframes fast solo. With the inclusion of Steel Path, leveling solo right now is easier and much faster if you have this weapon. The same stealth method on Vaca Siddon can be applied for leveling Warframes, only this time, you'll be using Ajati and the Steel Path version of Vaca Siddon. But squad leader, you can put Equinox Sleep in every Warframe right now for faster solo leveling. First of all, I don't recommend you investing early on the Helminth system as you will get burnout from all those resources needed to subsume and infuse abilities. Also, Do remember that we're talking about rank 0 Warframes here, and no matter how much range you put on your build, you still won't have the max range for Equinox sleep ability. Most likely, you will need other stuff like Magus Lockdown and Max Out Operator to perfect the leveling. On the other hand, all you need for this setup is a finisher build type ski Ajati, and you can also include Arcane Trickery, which sells less platinum now in the market. You can use this to all of your frames without manipulating anything on its kit, and it's very effective. Now the last thing I would like to include here is Vaca Siddon. This is the case of an amazing gimmicky weapon if it actually works right now. Before even creating the script of this video, I got Vaca Siddon as the top of the list, only to get disappointed when I tested it for a couple of hours. What I don't get is how the actual hell to gain charges after the melee rework. Please tell me in the comment box below if I'm missing something, but I only acquired charges for the radial blind mechanic when I was against Grineer Scorpions, and mind you, the only attack that gained charges was when they are using their harpoon to pull me over. I am hoping that this is only a bug and it will get fixed on the Arcano update, because if you haven't used this weapon, then probably you missed out on all the fun it gave in the past. The weapon does allow you to proc radial blind after you accumulated enough charges, and this means that enemies hit by the gimmick will be susceptible to stealth damage multiplier. Vaca Siddon may don't have high slash damage like any other meta endgame weapons, but it does have high crit chance and status chance, which are great when combined with viral and heat element, or any other dual element combination against factions. And do remember that this weapon can emit radial blind, which causes a stealth damage bonus, giving it more damage on blinded enemies. I really hope that Digital Extremes somehow fixed this weapon in the Arcano update, as it's one of those gimmicky weapons that everyone should have. So this is all for now. I am compiling another list as we speak, and there are some ideas on that list that you wouldn't expect or thought that exists. Let me know your thoughts about this video in the comment section below, as I would love to hear feedbacks from you guys. Also, be sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel and want to watch more Warframe content from us. Thank you so much for all your support. Squad Leader signing off.
This is the future. Human error. Evolution. This is the future.